We're going to talk on some basics, good old-fashioned basics, getting his back. Don't give it back to him. Keep it. We're talking about flattening an opponent out, getting him in a rodeo ride, and beating him up. So this is a video on the rodeo ride, and I got Derrick and Jacob here with me, so we are going to kind of co-coach and work on this. So Derrick, why don't you start? Jake, why don't you get on elbows and knees just as a good starting position again? And Derrick, why don't you coach us through us get behind his back, talk about getting the near leg in. Let's just, these are the basics. This video is on the basics. Let's cover them.
Okay. So I'm going to come around this way so you can see what I'm doing. I always try and control the head and the shoulder when I'm going through on this. Especially from a top position. If I have my head on the back of his, or hand on the back of his head against the mat, great, because now I've literally stuck him in one spot. He can't go anywhere without his head. If he has his head up, okay, and he's doing a good job of not allowing me to push it down, it gives me something to base off of, and again, by pushing his head up that hard, he can't move around very much, okay? If I let him free like that and I try passing, he can sit all the way up, see where I'm going, and keep me from getting his back, okay? So it's both to help me get an anchor point to move around and to anchor him in position, okay? So the other hand I'll usually put here, or I'll grab onto the belt if we're in a belt type of situation, okay? Goes there and there, get up on your feet so that you can move around easier. And as I come around, I'll put my weight on his back, okay? So it's almost like I'm pulling in and pushing off around here. Okay, and then it's the near side hook comes right in here. Okay, why the near side hook and not the far side hook? Because as you can see, even a guy that's my size, I can get that in there, right? But it's very easy for him to block or to roll that.
Yeah, he could grab your leg and foot and peel it right off. He can block you and roll you back over.
Exactly.
So you always want that. When we get our hooks in, everybody, we want to get the near hook in first, the near leg in first. Yep. Even if you can't get your leg in, you get your near wrist ride in first. That's what you want to control, and that way, that's your anchor. We got to establish an anchor, and here it is.
Yep. Okay. Also, another thing to remember is if I'm controlling this near side, even if it's only with a wrist ride, he either can turn into me, but he can't turn away from me now. Okay, I'm controlling that right there. He's going to have a hard time sitting out that way if I've got a hold of a piece of him. Okay?
Right.
All right, so again, we come through, just slide that hook back in. A lot of people that have an issue with getting the near side hook in are too far forward. Okay? So if I'm right here, okay, and I'm trying to get my hook in, you can see that takes a little bit of limberness to do, okay? If I'm back here, slides right in.
The good thing to remember, everybody, is we always want to key off on those hips, on his hips. And that's why we always say control the hips. Well, here's a case where you're mentally controlling the hips because that's your target to get to. If you can get to that hip area, like you said, you can get that near leg in there, sink it in tighter and faster.
Yep. Okay. Now, one thing that I'll usually do from that position, as we were coming through, slide through, and then I'll get an over-under, okay? If it's a gi position, we can get both lapels and pull back, or a single wrist and pull back, two wrists and pull back, but I'll usually try for the lapels first, and that way I've got at least one hook and his shoulders controlled. So again, if he does start rolling around, okay, I've got some control points here.
Jacob, do that again. Can you sit up so we can show the camera here what Derrick's doing with his hands and that hand fighting?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so we can see.
Okay, so you've got both lapels here. Okay, You've got a near wrist ride, 2-on-1. Okay, you've got a lapel and a wrist ride. Okay, you've got a far wrist ride. Okay, you've got just your hands together like a tight waist grip, an over-under or a seatbelt grip. Okay, any of those are good. It just depends on how you feel and what you've got available to you. But generally speaking, 2 lapels is pretty good. It's like holding a rope on either side, gives you something to grab onto as you're rolling.
And again, if they don't have, you're in a no-gi situation, that's where we go with the wrists often.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Or the seatbelt grip or some kind of,
Yeah. If I'm, like you're saying, Coach, the no-gi equivalent is 2 wrists.
Yeah, there you
pull
go.
them in.
Pull them in.
Or if you're as good at it, you can do 2-on-1, and that's about the same. Okay. From there, if it's no-gi, I transition over to the seatbelt grip. Okay, and then I'll hug nice and tight, and that gives me something to hold on to if he digs my hook back out.
So right now we're controlling the ride. We're getting the near hook in. We're controlling the ride. But we really want to get both hooks in, don't we? Because that's where we really have, that's our money shot right there. We can flatten them out. We can roll them into a seated rodeo ride or whatever. Right now, let's concern ourselves with flattening them out, getting him, really one of the worst places he can be, probably the worst place if you're the bottom grappler, is flat on your face with a very aggressive, skilled fighter on top of you, breathing down your neck, beating you up. Right. So, yeah, the worst place to be is flat on your face. Let's put him in the worst place he can be.
All right. So I got my 1 hook in, okay? This time I'm going to get a single wrist ride, okay? Always get your hand control first before putting in your far hook. And that's because if he starts rolling around, okay, I've got something to hold on to, and then I can always get that hook in later. In this instance, he's being nice and cooperative for me. I've got my 1 hook in, I've got my near wrist ride, and then we just put that other hook in. Now from here, what a lot of people get in trouble with is they sag back, okay? I don't want to do that. As soon as that hook comes in, you come forward and you're trying to hook him. And if you're lucky and he's not giving you much resistance, he flattens out for you, okay? And then it's just dig through.
And one thing you're doing there is putting Jacob's feet up in the area, you're riding forward. All the weight is going forward into his chest area.
Right.
So why don't you show that again here? You just flatten the guy out, and you just basically ride him. Hook.
Oh.
Now, once you get the near hook, get the hand hook too. You want your good hand fighting there too. Now you've got him. Now, what you're doing now, see everyone here how he's basically at a rodeo ride from here. But if he sits back too far, he loses it.
Okay, your chest to back, or chest to shoulder blades, okay, and then you just start opening your hips up and flatten them out, okay? If you're doing it correctly, his feet lift up because you're actively pushing into him, and when you get your hand free, you literally push him into the choke. It's a pretty nasty way to get choked.
And you're really driving him forward onto his chest and onto his face.
Yep.
Is what you're doing,
Everything goes that way. So
now, if you've got a really tough guy who is hard to break down, so if you got your rodeo ride, why don't you climb up on him with both hooks in and start your rodeo ride. Now, let's look at some just drive forward. So why don't you do like the drive forward with both hands, and then the Superman. Let's do some of the hand fighting there.
Okay, so you've got the double underhooks or the double wrist ride. Come in here. This one's probably the easiest. You grab a hold of the wrists because they're already on the ground. You pull them towards you as you place your hips back out. Okay, and you'll notice again his feet are up. My knees are flattened out. Okay, I've got his arms pulled in right there. And then again, you're right through to the choke.
Good position to get the Hadaka Jime rear naked choke.
Another one is what we call the Superman. So instead of being able to grab onto his wrists, he's doing a good job of keeping him in. Okay, so as I grab through here, I just push my hands out like I'm going to Superman. Okay, and that's a good way to keep a guy who's got his elbows in flattened out. Okay, again, you'll notice my feet and my hips are doing the same thing they were before. Okay, get back through. Okay, the next one is what I call the chop down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one wrist, and this other hand is going to come through and chop down on top of this arm. Okay, you can also come through here like this and chop, but I find it's a little bit easier. And the benefit of this one is as it chops, it comes right into your choking position. Okay, and then it's
And I'm with you, Derrick. I like to get that near wrist and on the inside, because as you chop, you pull that in and it just flattens him right on his face.
Right on his face.
Right on his face. And that's where we like him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And your arm is right there in the choke.
Ready for a Hadaka Jume rear naked stroke,
Right.
strangle.
So again, we catch right there. This hand comes in and chops. Okay? And down he goes, right into choking position. Okay? Alright. So, another way of doing it is to spread out. Okay? So we just push his hands out, down he goes. Okay? And again, dig under.
And that's one that you don't see very often, but it's a good one. You know, it fans them out, basically. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Just like that.
Did we cover since we got the jacket on, a double lapel, did we show that one yet?
Nope, not
So
yet.
that's very good for any time of gi, grappling, judo, sambo, any type of, jiu-jitsu.
Okay, so I got a hold of the gi here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it down like I'm going to try and pull it out through underneath his armpits.
Yeah,
As I drive
as you
forward.
drive forward. So you pull back on his lapels as you drive forward with the hips, and that puts him flat down.
Okay? One more time. Get through, okay? Down he goes.
And the longer you can control that rodeo ride, the better for you, the worse for him. You might keep him there for a while, and it's just that's why we call it a ride. It is a rodeo ride, and I picked this name up years ago from John Saylor. He was the first guy I ever heard call it, somewhere back in the mid to early '80s. He always called it the rodeo ride, and for obvious reasons.
Looks like you're riding a horse.
It's just like you're riding a horse or a bull or whatever you may be riding. It's
In Jake's instance.
or in this case, your opponent. So those are some ways of flattening a guy out and just getting him flattened out. Very basic stuff, but I'll tell you what, basic stuff wins. It wins matches, wins fights. Get him flat on his face. The worst place in the world to be often is you're on the bottom with a guy on top of you, you're flat on your face, and you have nowhere to go. And if you're the top guy, you're not letting him go anywhere, are you?
Nope.
So, all right, well, thanks a lot, guys.